So the next topic I wanted to talk about is this. I'm going to put it up on the screen so we can kind of start talking about it. So as a lot of you might have seen and might have heard, since it's actually everywhere, we had basically Lucasfilm hiring a YouTuber that used deepfakes to tweak Luke Skywalker on The Mandalorian. So a YouTuber known as Shamook has earned 2 million views for the deepfake Mandalorian video. Now, this doesn't really surprise me because, he has been doing this kind of stuff for ages, okay? So he's been doing, it's not like this is new. Some of these articles are so insultive. I know, that's why I want to talk about this. And that's exactly why I want to talk about these things. That's why I wanted people to call in on the show. He has been doing this for a long time. Shamook has been doing it for a long time. He has 90,000 subscribers, almost 100,000. Some of his videos are pretty cool. Some of his videos are not that good. I mean, it kind of really depends. Some of them are it's like up for grabs, some of them. But he has basically 3 million views on the solo video. He has also the 2.8 million views on The Mandalorian. And the news about him being hired by Lucasfilm is a conflicting story for me, to say the least. You know, if you think about it, like, for me, first of all, I'm a bit sad that he was hired by Lucasfilm because I felt that he should have continued doing his YouTube channel because I really enjoyed what he was doing. But on a way, I'm guessing that maybe that was his dream, and I don't know him, so I'm not sure exactly what was his plan. I'm sure that this didn't happen in purpose. But for me, like, it is a bit, like Andrew was saying, it is a bit misleading of how some of these artists are supposedly fixing the visual effects of a certain film, fixing something. First of all, I'm going to play the video so that we can talk about it while we're discussing. First of all, the thing that I would say, and I think we are among artists, a lot of people here on the audience are all artists, so I'm sure that a lot of people here have the same feeling as me. But first of all, it's not really that he fixed something. It's not really that he actually made it better. What I think people forget, especially on YouTube, is that it is easy to make something look good if you have a lot of time. It's really easy to make something very good if you have unlimited time and unlimited resources and unlimited feedback loops. You know, if you're doing something with no budget just for YouTube and just doing it on your spare time, it is obvious that it's probably going to look better than a visual effects done somewhere else, just for the single fact that you have no deadline. You know, give an example. If someone was given on a company 2 months to do a CG Luke Skywalker, they would probably try to do their best with the 2 months they got. But if someone on YouTube spends a year developing something with infinite versions until he gets it right, not to mention that with no client feedback, is it really the same? Because I don't think it is. I feel that that's why it becomes a bit disrespectful, and no disrespect, you know, I'm sure he's a great guy, and I'm not talking about him in specific. I'm talking about a lot of YouTube people that do have this mentality that they can fix visual effects. I want to remind everyone that visual effects doesn't exist on a vacuum, you know. It exists with client feedback. It exists with timeline. It exists with a budget. It exists with multiple layers of senior management having feedback, not to mention clients, studio heads, a bunch of people. Sometimes you have 5, 6, 7 layers of feedback leads or feedback clients before you can even make a change on a project. And I think that's why I have some problems with this. Because what's going to happen now with this, with a bit, you know, articles like this, you know, Lucasfilms hired the YouTuber who used deepfakes to tweak Luke Skywalker. You know, the problem now is that a lot of people are going to think that they can just do videos on YouTube and then they become part of Lucasfilms. And that's not going to happen, you know. First of all, I think this was a very specific thing that happened here. Second thing, I think he really wanted, otherwise he wouldn't have accepted the job offer that he got accepted. And third, it is, like I said, very different to have clients and feedback and timelines and budgets or to actually just do a YouTube video. So this has always been my problem with Corridor Digital. It's always been. They really do a lot of amazing stuff, of course, but they also cultivate, not that they do it in purpose. I don't think they do it in purpose. And I think that's why I'm saying that they do a lot of good things as well. But just the simple fact that when you look at their page here and you look at the way their thumbnails are made, you know, like visual effects react, then you see someone screaming, or and a lot of times it says bad or great CG. It has the word bad. It has the word of reacting. It has all these kind of tropes that are YouTube tropes. And my problem is not really what Corridor Digital is doing or even what Shamook does, you know. They are doing their they're doing some cool videos. They have their creatives. They want to do some cool stuff. My problem is the way this is interpreted and the way that this leads to misunderstanding of how visual effects works. It's literally clickbait. Yes, exactly like Rand Deerhouse says, it's a clickbait. Anyway, I want to shut up now and I want to bring in someone to discuss this. So does anyone want to jump into a call to talk about this? Just like last time, just jump into Discord and hit me up on Discord and I'll bring you into the show. I really want to talk about this and have a discussion from both angles about it. So does anyone want to join? Andrew is right. A lot of people on visual effects don't like Corridor. No, I don't like Corridor a lot. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do. You should know that I get a lot of hate online because I sometimes mention that Corridor is not helping the industry a lot sometimes. So I feel like sometimes they make things worse. That's my problem with it. Yes, that is true. They've never worked on the industry. That is one of my problems with this. I'll let him introduce. So I'm calling him now. I'll let him introduce. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Ah, cool. Yes, I can definitely hear you. So tell me things. Of course, keep in mind, if you don't want to say it, you don't have to. But if you do want to say it, your name or your tag and where you're coming from. Like, give us a little bit of intro.
Sure. My name's Carter, and I'm from California. I'm a compositor.
Ah, cool, man. Just the perfect person to talk about this discussion. So what do you think about... Thank you so much for calling the show, by the way. Thank you so much for calling. Like I said, this is a new format. I don't even know how this is going to work out. And sometimes...
Yeah, neither do I. I'm just... You're the calling. Why not? You wanted to talk to somebody, and you were just flailing up there.
So yeah, I was surprised, you know, because the last topic was I thought the last topic we had about sexual harassment was not going to have anyone calling, and actually we had a bunch of people calling. So I was surprised that it was the other way around. I was expecting this one to have a lot of people calling. So that's how I am wrong. But yeah, tell me a bit about what you think about this, man. What are you feeling? Since you're a composer, I'm a composer as well. How do you feel about this news, about this YouTuber, and how this is all being handled, and how we have hundreds of articles now talking about this, you know? How do you feel about this?
I wasn't familiar with this until I just saw it on your stream, actually. I'm fairly plugged into the VFX world, so I would have figured I would have seen it, but I must have missed it somehow.
Yeah, it's been everywhere. It was on the 26th, so it was like 2 days ago that this happened, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I just haven't checked the VFX news recently enough. Yeah, I think my thoughts on it are very similar to yours. I think it's one thing to hire somebody who does cool VFX on the internet. Like, that's fine. Like, there was I know there's a VFX artist named Ryan Weber who did a bunch of lightsaber fights on the internet about 10-15 years ago.
Yep.
That sort of went viral a bit, and he ended up getting hired as an intern or something at Lucasfilm and went on to a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Like, it's you know, it's cool to get your name out there that way and get brought on. I think my concern is less so with, you know, Lucasfilm or ILM making a calculated decision to bring on somebody that has skills and will add to their company. Like, that's good for them, you know. My concern is the way that it gets framed and the way that it gets out there and the way that you know, VFX journalism and the broader press talking about VFX have a tendency to report on these things in a way that doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually going on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They are most of the time wrong on these kind of things.
Especially with the whole prevalence of the fixing, like you're talking about, the idea that they fixed it or made it better instead of just doing something. And the idea that, because this one guy on YouTube fixed the actions of this big studio, they're going to bring him in and he's going to fix all of their VFX, which is just such a wrong way to look at it.
It is, isn't it? I feel like this is quite damaging, to be honest. I feel that way because it's such a big team effort. There are hundreds of people involved on this CG, and I am sure they're all super talented, and I can never blame anyone I keep saying this to everyone, like never judge any work from a production ever. You know why? Because you do not know what kind of problems they had on set. You don't know what kind of problems they might have had with production. You don't know what the budgets were. You don't know what the timelines were. You don't even know if the client changed their minds on the last minute, on the last day, on the day before delivery. This happens all the time in our industry, but that never gets reported. You know, that is the issue.
I do find it kind of interesting that everyone on the subject of Corridor as well, who I have a lot of mixed feelings on as well.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that every once in a while you will see them really trying to reinforce to their audience that that's the way you should approach these things. Like, as much as their thumbnails are clickbaity and they spend a lot of time, you know, screaming and making exaggerated faces when a bad, you know, CGI character shows up, they do, from what I've seen of their videos, I don't know how many of them I watched, they do seem to sometimes try to emphasize that, yeah, there's schedule constraints and timing constraints and, you know, demands coming down from the Disney executives. The thing is, as much as they might try to emphasize that in their videos, does it kind of get contradicted by the rest of their framing? By naming your video bad and great VFX, even if in the video you say, hey, you know what, this is all just artists working their best and they're on a tight schedule. If you then call your series reacting to bad VFX and the other parts of your video are you making faces when a character with a bad texture shows up, does that kind of undermine your message?
Yeah, exactly.
Or the way that their fans, who are, you know, a lot of, I mean, I'm sure they have a wide fan base, but, you know, their fans are a lot of, you know, 14-year-olds using After Effects to make movies in their backyard, which is awesome. That's, you know, that's the future of the industry. That's where the next wave of artists is going to come from. But those fans who have come to see them as this sort of, first who have come to see them as this sort of expert voice representing the realities of the VFX industry, despite the fact that they're not actually in the VFX industry.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly why I have those mixed feelings. And you're right. Like Corridor Crew, they do try to explain, and that's why I sometimes like their videos and sometimes I don't. And I know that they're doing this because they want hits and they want millions of views. But yes,
exactly. You know,
sometimes they do have a clear misunderstanding of the industry, and I don't want to focus too much attention on them. This is not about them. It was about this YouTuber. I was more talking about the way the way the world is reacting to this. Because if you look at my screen, I know you have a delay, but if you look at my screen, not only IndieWire posted something, but CNET posted something, and then also
I didn't see the headline until just now. Yeah,
Gizmodo put something up. The Independent put something up. Engaged put something up. Everyone jumped into this, and even The Verge put something up. My problem with this is that this is the mainstream media, not really the visual effects industry. You know, obviously,
people don't necessarily even know what they're talking about.
Exactly. Like someone like Lumo mentioned on the chat, they don't even put ILM. They put Lucasfilms, which of course it wasn't Lucasfilms that hired him. It was ILM.
Yeah.
They don't even know what they're talking about. But this is the problem. The problem is that now it's going to be on the conscience of the regular audience, that, you know, of the people in general, that someone that does a deep fake can solve everything, and one person can do a film or one YouTuber can fix it. And it then comes back to this discussion of, oh, you know, this guy is so much better than ILM. This guy is so much better than Nineg.
Exactly.
You know, he can fix everything. We've seen this YouTuber. That's the problem. It's the same issue when you see articles pretending that there were no visual effects on film. We keep debating this as well. You know, this happens all the time as well. I just recently talked a lot about that on the podcast with Before and Afters. And
I haven't watched the new one yet, but I like the series.
And I feel like really damaged by that when I go to a shop and then someone tells me that it was 99% real. You know, someone turned to me and said, "Oh yeah, you know, Fast and Furious, it was all done for real. There's no visual effects." And I'm like, "Fuck, man, no, don't say that." And this is the problem. I think it's we are also the guys that can kind of like help with this situation. I see all of this happening, all of these mainstream articles about how this YouTuber managed to fix everything. And I guess it's up to us also to like debunk this, to retweet it, to say, no, this is not true, to make calls like we're doing now. We're discussing this and really try to broaden our range and try to get more people to listen to this, because it is very damaging. It just comes back to the same problem as always, where people really have the wrong idea. They think they can just click on a button and everything is done. And
it's funny off the subject of that, actually. I think it's kind of funny that, like, I feel like this news story ends up touching on that in two completely opposite ways. One of which is the sort of worship of AI and machine learning that you see, where people think that more than ever now, AI has started to make people think that you really do just click a button and it magically, people, when deepfakes was first a thing a year or so ago, people were saying, oh, we don't need actors anymore, we don't need, and of course, there's still artists involved in creating some sort of deepfake video. You've got to train the data, you've got to, correctly verify it, you've got to comp it back into the shots. And at the same time, also, you've got this person who is indeed using to a lot. Now, obviously, there's artistry involved, but it's a different type of artistry than the type of artistry that went into creating the original Luke Skywalker. The original Luke Skywalker involved modeling and shading and look dev and rigging and blend shapes and all sorts of stuff. And the person who made this other video, there was art involved, but they went about it completely differently. They were using this AI tool that involved clicking some buttons and moving some sliders. And I don't want to diminish the work that they did, which I'm sure was extensive, but it's a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
And I think to suggest that by virtue of them being good at deepfakes, they are going to be able to fix the pipeline that works in a completely different way at this other studio because it's I don't know, I'm rambling a little here.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, I completely get to it. And I actually put it on I put up the video from Tom Cruise, which we also had like a couple of months ago, where everyone was like talking about this deep fake of Tom Cruise. And to the credit of the person that made these videos, he actually came around and talked with the articles and talked with the journalists that he spent months working on this. It took him months to do this, It was a mixture of deep fakes with visual effects, with compositing, with roto, with everything, and paintovers. It wasn't just a click button solution. It was not. And he actually was very frontal about that. The problem is the clickbaitness of these articles make it sound like that's the thing. But the reason why I want to bring this up is because I know that I can't solve the regular audience that knows nothing about visual effects. I can't really convince them of otherwise because they read these articles and they think, oh, it's just a button. That's fine. What I'm worried about is new people coming into the industry because I get a lot of messages from young artists, young people that are now starting up that truly start to believe these things and they think it's done this way to a point that they even... I've gotten messages from people messaging me privately saying, why do you do nuke courses? No one needs to know nuke anymore. Nuke is gone. No one is going to use it ever. I get messages like that of people saying no one will ever use nuke. No one will ever do compositing. Or even people saying, why do you have a course of Arnold? People just use Unreal. We don't need Arnold. We can just use Unreal.
Oh man, the real-time thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is going to be the next topic. It's the LED volume thing. But the thing with this for me is that it's highly damageable, and it's also like these YouTube channels don't help. They don't really help because they make it sound so easy. And I really feel that the people coming up to the ranks, the juniors, really have the wrong idea of how things are done. And I'm a bit worried that they might not be learning the correct stuff because they think that now they don't need to learn it because it's so much easier now because everything is so much automatic. I know a lot of people on the chat here say that people are crazy, they should really know better, but you'll be surprised by the amount of people that I get messages like that all the time. I get like people that are now growing in the industry and asking me, oh, maybe I should skip all of this and just learn Unreal and that's the only thing I need. Just like they think that Unreal will do everything from rigging to animation to facial to rendering to comping. It will solve everything. And to be honest, it will solve some problems, but it will just be on the middle of the pipeline in the middle of the other softwares like everyone else uses because the other software is also not static. They also evolve. So
or, I mean, look at the people who have been saying that Blender is going to take over every piece of software in the industry for 20 years now.
Oh, fuck's sake. I think Andrew is still on the audience here. If Andrew is still here, man, Andrew, you are the guy, isn't it, Andrew? You're just going to use Blender from now on, isn't it? I don't know if he's still here. But yes, I know, man. It's been, but when you start debating that kind of thing, maybe that should be a topic for another show. That when you start debating, it becomes almost like a religion. You can't say anything.
Yeah.
You cannot say anything because they are so convinced that it's like Blender is like the best thing in the world. Blender is great. I have no problems with Blender.
I use Blender. It's my main 3D software. I like it. I just don't have any delusions that it's the best thing in the industry and it will replace all my other tools.
Oh my God. Oh man. Well, man, I thank you so much for joining the call, man. And thank you so much for being courageous enough to join the call, man. I was really struggling here, and I'm really glad that we had this discussion. Thank you so much, because it really resonates. Yeah, thank you so much, man.
I almost forgot. There's one last thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, of course, go for it.
Which was not directly related, but sort of related to the interesting deepfake thing, especially off the Luke Skywalker thing and all that, which is just one of the things that I find most fascinating about especially a lot of these Star Wars ones, or when people try to put older actors back in.
Yep.
One thing that I find really interesting that I haven't seen anyone mentioning anywhere that I think is just really kind of amusing is I noticed it especially when people were doing deepfakes of Tarkin in Rogue One, the fully CG character they had in Rogue One, where one of the main things that you'll notice, if you look at the original footage and the deepfake version, the main thing you'll notice the deepfake did is just made the lighting harder on the main character, which I think is really fascinating, because if you think about movies that were shot in the 70s, like the original Star Wars, were lit almost entirely with these Fresnels. You know, they didn't use soft boxes and lightings. They had only hard lights on these stages.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't fashionable back then. Yeah, it wasn't lit by that. And also, like, it was celluloid. It was 35 millimeters, so it's lit in a different way.
And so you can look at a movie from the 70s and see a completely different feel to the skin and the lighting and stuff, because just everything is hard light at different angles.
Yeah.
And so everybody's mental reference for what what's the actor's name? He plays Tarkin. His name is Peter Cushing.
Yes, Peter Cushing. Yes,
so everybody's mental reference for what Peter Cushing looks like as Tarkin is both Peter Cushing's face and bone structure and skin texture and stuff, but also what Peter Cushing looks like lit under hard Fresnel stage lights in 1977.
Yeah.
And Rogue One is lit with a lot of soft light. Rogue One is super soft boxy and LED panel-y.
Yeah.
And so when there was a lot of reaction to him looking fake or wrong or whatever, there was a part of me that started wondering, like, how much of that is that, you know, Uncanny Valley and all that kind of stuff, and how much of that is people reacting to seeing an actually very realistic Peter Cushing lit under a lighting setup that they would have never seen him in the original Star Wars series, that they're not used to seeing him under.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
that's
even
the thing.
The Luke Skywalker thing is the same thing. That deepfake of Luke Skywalker, one of the main things you can see is it looks like all the lighting on him has just gotten a little harsher from all those Fresnels from the training data. All the training data is Fresnel lit lights on studio stages.
Yeah. Yeah, just look at the link that I have on the show. I know you're a bit delayed, but this YouTube channel says Rogue One, Moff Tarkin fixed. Look at the way it's written. Fixed. It's fixed. Yeah. Okay, I fixed it now. You guys are all shit, and I fixed it. There's another thing also that I find. I'm really glad you mentioned this film. It's so funny how they fix what was already done. So a lot of times they are putting the deep fake and the visual effects on top of already the visual effects.
On top of what thousands of artists spent months doing.
Exactly.
With facial muscles and performance and head tilts.
Yeah. And it's so ridiculous because they didn't, like, if they would have gotten the original plates with the stand-in actor that was there, I would have loved for them to fucking try, you know, to try to get that to work with like a random face of a person, of a random, like, because we never get those. Usually, very rarely we get breakdowns with the original plate, and even when we do, we get them with the really low quality because H.264, so you could never really work on them. But it's just this kind of bullshitting needs to stop, and I think it's up to us also. I keep calling this shit out all the time, and I think it's up to us to call this shit out all the time, because I know a lot of people on the audience, a lot of people on YouTube are not visual effects artists, so of course I'm sure they believe this is true. But I think this is so damaging that I'm a bit worried that the visual effects artists themselves and the pro consumers and the people, the juniors and the amateurs that want to be in this industry get the wrong idea. And that's why, I'm really glad that you've mentioned this when I forgot about Tarkin's thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, I feel like I just missed this. Like, if I'd gotten into VFX, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years later than I did, this would have been, all these YouTube channels and all this kind of stuff would have been my main reference source. And, you know, you say people should know better, but they're only as good as the sources of information that they're getting. And
of course,
if somebody Googles visual effects or whatever, they're not necessarily going to find...
No.
You know, they're not going to find the nuke channels and the surfacing artists first. They're going to find the sort of clickbaity kind of stuff.
I'll give you this. I'll give you this. I'll give you, before you go. Like, I'll give you this example. Like, let's just try here. I'm not comparing. Please, no one think that I'm trying to compare myself with Corridor Digital. Not at all. But Look at here. Corridor Digital has 4.9 million subscribers. Million. 4.9 million. Okay. I have Hugo's Desk 47,000. Okay. Very proud of my number because there's very few new artists in the world. So very proud of my subscribe base. If you're now starting in the industry and you're looking for visual effects and you look at my channel, 47,000, and then you look at Corridor Digital, 4.9 million, which one are you going to think I should check out? Which one? It will always be the one, oh, this one has more people, so I'm sure it's better. That's the problem. This is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And YouTube also needs to be called out on this because YouTube is really bad for small channels like mine. I'll give you an idea. Every day I get messages from YouTube saying how my channel is underperforming or my channel doesn't have enough views or my last video was worse than the last one. I got messages, automatic messages from them all the time saying, why don't you try something different? Why don't you try to see the latest trends and try to do a better video? I kept constantly getting messages, bringing down my channel, just saying, this is not working. You have less views now, less views now, less views now. And sometimes I don't get less. I just get the same amount of views I had before, but I don't get more views. That's the thing. And this kind of way that YouTube works, really, I know why Corridor Crew does this, because they don't have a choice. If they don't do these kind of things, they will only get 1,000 views. They will only get 2,000 views. They won't get 1 million views. And that is the only way of being monetized successfully inside of YouTube. So the problem also lies on YouTube, on Google. They should be better at supporting small niche channels because in the reality of the world, we've always had niche industries. That's why we still have art school, and then we have medical school, and we have lawyer school, and we have economical school. Not every school needs to be a success, and not every place needs to be millions or thousands and thousands of people. The same way YouTube channels shouldn't be compared by just the number. Numbers mean nothing. So versus quality. This is a problem, you know. I know it's a bit. I know Ran is right on the chat. Educational channels have really low subs. That's fine. I don't mind that they have low subs. I just would like for YouTube to support them anyway, because in the past when I was younger, I usually supported artistic films. I would go to the cinema. There would maybe be 20 people on the room, but the film was important to watch, and I liked the film anyway. It's not that that film was a failure because it only had 20 people watching. It was still successful maybe because it was cheaper maybe, or it was a much smaller production. So I just really worried about this way of looking at success this way. But this is another topic, you know. This is another topic, man. I will bring that topic in later on. Anyway, man, thank you so much for joining. We already have another caller, so we already have someone else.
Fun chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling, and I hope you have a great day, man. I'll see you later.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.